Chinggis Khan was elected emperor of the Mongol Empire in 1206. Through war, he expanded the Mongol Empire, which eventually led to the war against Asia, also in 1206. The Mongols had very brutal war tactics, such as using their enemy prisoners as shields during their wars, as well as using bow arrows on fire against their enemies. They were heavily disciplined and coordinated.
Why did the Mongol tactics prove to be so effective in conquering other regions?
Well, the Mongols had a very disciplined and skilled army, as well as some weapons that the other opponents had never seen before and just had never dealt with before, so that's why they were able to conquer so many regions and make their empire so big and defeat so many other armies.
But eventually, in 1346, the bubonic plague swept through Eurasia just as the Mongol Empire was fighting against Eurasia. The Mongol Empire went to the city of Kaffa in 1346. When the Mongols tried to invade the city of Kaffa under the rule of Jani Beg, the Mongol army got infested by the bubonic plague and ended up losing to the Kaffa soldiers. The soldiers destroyed their machines, which were used to break down walls, and killed many of the Mongols. Kaffa focused more on their defense and strengthening their position. This allowed them to maintain their independence and protect their city from further Mongol invasions.
The war between Eurasia and the Mongol Empire initially started because Chinggis Khan sent an expedition to pursue rivals who had fled to the region and threaten his new empire. Although throughout the history of the Mongol Empire, they have used many types of war tactics. The ones that they mainly used against Eurasia during the war was what we mentioned in the introduction. This was the use of the enemy prisoners in order to shield themselves, protect their horse, weapons, supplies, and anything else they carried or traveled with during the war. This proved to be effective as Asia was practically killing off their own people every time they attacked the Mongols with some type of arrow, spear, or weapon. The other main tactic they used was the usage of bow and arrows that were lit on fire, which also proved to be effective because one shot, it would easily catch the soldiers from the army of Asia that was hit on fire, making them get severe burns or even die. It would also catch the surroundings of the soldiers on fire, making it harder for them to have the ability to get up to where they want or need on the land, causing a shortage of supply.
What was the bubonic plague and how did it start?
The bubonic plague was a very infectious disease that affected Europe, Asia, and Africa, and it spread through rats and bugs and stuff like that. There's no definitive answer on how the bubonic plague started, but it was thought to start from ships and trading because of the infestation of rats on the boats.
Eventually, the bubonic plague entered many different regions of the world during this period of time. Most importantly, it entered Eurasia during the time the Mongols were still at war with Eurasia, which all leads up to the point in time where the Mongol Empire goes to the city Kaffa to try and invade it under Jani Beg. This is where things took a huge turn for the Mongol Empire as they got severely affected by the bubonic plague, causing them to become sick, weak, and unable to talk. They also weren't able to take care of themselves, which leads to the Kaffa soldiers taking over the Mongols, killing themselves, and even destroying their siege machines that they used in order to get into the cities by breaking their walls down or throwing things above the wall.
This document source from Uses speaks on the bubonic plague going through the city after the Mongols attacked them. The document goes on to later talk about the Mongols' attack on the city and how a boat of people who thought that were not infected were leaving and infecting other parts of Europe. In addition, the Mongols now become infected from the bubonic plague after their attempt of taking over the city of Kaffa, which they will now spread the diseases onto their families, friends, and throughout their population. This caused a devastating effect on populations that could support their methods of attack to weaken their opponents. I now introduce our guest speaker, historian Maria, where she speaks more on the Mongol Empire, the war that they had between the city of Kaffa, war tactics that they used during that war that worked really well for them, and even a little bit on the Mongols' revenge plans on the city of Kaffa. The Mongol Empire was a very brutal yet successful empire, conquering 9 million square miles in Asia and Europe. Their war tactics and government allowed them to take control of the regions around them. A war tactic that worked really well for them was a Finch retreat, where they would pretend to retreat in order to lure their opponents in. They were also really great at hand combat. They always had aggressive invading plans. The Mongols' way of reconquering the city of Kaffa was that they catapulted plague-infested bodies over their city walls, spreading the disease among the population. This led to a devastating outbreak inside the city, causing panic and weakening the defenders. The Mongols were able to easily conquer. It was a brutal and effective strategy, taking advantage of the fear and chaos caused by the plague. This source from Peppo comes from his diary that he wrote between 1340 and 1380. It serves as a memorial book that has recordings of business affairs, accounts of events, personal and family matters, including details of his 3 weddings, a list of his legitimate and illegitimate children, and a register of about 10 family members who had died in the Black Plague during 1348 in June and July. Our second guest speaker is historian Enzo, where he speaks more on the effect of the bubonic plague on millions of people and how it changed the way that they lived their everyday lives.
The bubonic plague was a harsh and deadly disease. It killed around 25 million people between 1346 and 1351. It was especially bad because of the lack of running water and the lack of concern for cleanliness. It came with many symptoms such as cough and blood, painful swollen lymph nodes, and flu-like symptoms. It could come from a bite of a flea or a rat bite.
How was the plague used as a weapon?
Well, so basically, the Mongols, they knew it was contagious and they knew it could kill people, so they were smart, they were big brain. And so basically they got the dead bodies or even the live people that were infested with the bubonic plague and literally catapulted these people into the cities of Kaffa, city of Kaffa, and basically infested them and took over them because all of these people were now getting sick.
In the end, the Mongol Empire was frustrated that they had lost to the city of Kaffa and were set on getting their revenge. The manner in which they got their revenge was through throwing the bodies of people that were infected with the bubonic plague over the city walls of Kaffa in order to wipe their population out. It was also not uncommon that the bodies being thrown were the bodies of those who had just passed from either the bubonic plague, some other type of disease, or the war. This method of attack was seen as useful in weakening the city of Kaffa in order for the Mongols to reconquer them. Overall, the Mongols were mad at their loss against the city of Kaffa when they were first at war with them. But they still had a very successful revenge plan, which had infested the city of Kaffa with the bubonic plague and many other new diseases, such as smallpox, that were all going around throughout the time period of the bubonic plague's peak. This all leads to a great percentage of death rates within the population of Kaffa, causing a lack for resources and supplies. After the disease started infecting the people in Kaffa, the thought to be the uninfected people took a boat across the Black Sea and to Genoa, spreading the disease even more. Several millions died from either the Black Plague or from the war during the fight against the Mongol Empire in the city of Kaffa, showing that the Mongol Empire and the city of Kaffa both played huge roles in spreading the Black Plague and many other diseases throughout Europe, Asia, and to other cities near them. Eventually, the Mongol Empire did gain more territory through their revenge against the city of Kaffa, but with the negative cost that they had now lost a huge percentage of their population.